Good evening. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight and taking time out of your day to learn
Muchas gracias por acompañarnos esta noche y tomarse tiempo para aprender esta tarde.
more about the county's efforts to fund projects to improve the health and safety of local neighborhoods. We really appreciate your being here.
Para aprender sobre los esfuerzos que está haciendo el condado para patrocinar proyectos para mejorar la salud y seguridad de nuestros vecindarios.
My name is Rochelle Lewis, and I'm a senior engagement consultant with Civic Mike, and we are happy to have Paulina Torre with us to provide Spanish translation.
Mi nombre es Rochelle Luis y soy una consultante con Civic Mike y estamos contentos de tener a Paulina Torri el día de hoy para que nos dé servicios de interpretación al español.
If you would like to listen in English only, just stay right where you are. If you would like to access Spanish audio and hear the Spanish translation of all the presentations as they happen, you can click on the little round icon at the bottom of your screen that's titled Interpretations, and then you can click to choose Spanish.
Si quisieran escuchar solamente en inglés, quédese donde está, pero si quisiera tener acceso al canal de audio en español y escuchar toda la interpretación en español de manera consecutiva, por favor haga clic en el botón pequeño redondo que está al final de su pantalla que dice Interpretaciones. Ahí puede hacer clic para escoger el canal de español.
Okay, so we'll give people a moment if anybody is making that choice to switch over. And John, you can let me know when you think we're ready there.
Yeah, I mean, it's working. So anybody that wants to jump over there should have had enough opportunity. And you can also go back and forth between English and Spanish if you like.
Okay. So we're going to stop the consecutive translation from English to Spanish, and we were going to speak here in English. And if anybody decides they'd like to hear the Spanish, then go on over to interpretations at the bottom of your screen. Okay, Civic Mike has been working with the county over the past year to help inform and engage residents about their priorities for improving communities. And tonight, the county's main focus is to provide an understanding of the resulting infrastructure improvement projects that are planned for your community and to provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. So just a few quick ground rules to cover before we jump in. We plan to keep the meeting to 1 hour, including 15 to 20 minutes of questions, and we will hold all questions to the end of the presentations. So if you have a question, make a note of it. We hope we'll answer a lot of those questions just in the course of the presentations. To help keep background noise down, we ask that you keep yourself muted when you're not speaking so everyone can hear what's being presented. If someone goes off mute who's not speaking, we'll put them back on so everyone can hear the information being shared. Civic Mike's work is engaging the public, and we're interested in helping the county hear from all residents, and we're committed to ensuring respectful dialogue. So, of course, foul language or personal insults are not acceptable. We've never had to do this before, but in the event there is bad behavior, that person will be moved by the moderator into a private meeting room on Zoom to regain their composure and allowed to return. If the behavior continues, that person will be permanently removed from the meeting. Of course, this looks like a very friendly group, and we do not expect this to happen, but we say it at the top of every meeting so everyone can be assured this is a respectful forum. Okay, so we're here to share information about infrastructure projects in your community. And if you live in the Colorado Rouse neighborhood in particular, we have one quick announcement to make. And for that, I will turn it over to my colleague at Civic Mike, Michelle Argerich Valentine.
Hello, everybody. I am, let's see, John, is that slide switched? It's not switched on my end. There we go. Perfect. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm here to share an important opportunity that's exclusively for residents of the Rouse, Colorado neighborhoods. The county has discovered some funding is available to improve your community's infrastructure. Specifically, you can switch from a septic system to being connected to the Modesto City Sewer. And the good news is that it's not going to cost you a penny in construction costs. So again, the county has found this grant, but to secure this funding, we have to show strong community interest. So the grant hinges on this, on making sure that we can show interest. The grant requires 200 expressions of interest to move forward. As it stands, we have about 81, and it's so crucial to get these surveys in so that we can, or so the county can then go and apply for this grant and show that your community wants it. You know, the sewer systems are just so much more reliable and safe and healthy, and it's actually gonna create a lot of savings for your parcel as well. You know, it's estimated at 19K per parcel. So we are strongly encouraging you to sign up. We are going to have a community workshop just about this on November 7th. It's going to be at James Marshall Elementary School, and it is sorry, let's read that. It's 515 Sutter Avenue. From 6:30 to 8:30. Anytime you can, show up. And if you're interested now, please scan the QR code that's right there so that you can just do your interest survey now, or John is linking it in the thing so you can click it. Also, because we need so many, this is just a reminder to share it with your neighbors. If you you can text them, you can email them, and sign up for those notices at civicmike.com/Stanislaus. So thank you so much for letting me interrupt just this little portion of the meeting to bring this to you. It's an exciting opportunity, and we definitely want the Rouse, Colorado area and community to have this opportunity. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks very much for joining us for that.
Yes, bye.
Okay, so, and again, if folks have questions or want to, weren't able to scan the QR code, you can go to civicmike.com/Stanislaus, and you'll find the same information there. Okay, we have 3 sets of presenters sharing information with us tonight. First, we'll hear from Danny Mauricio, an engineer with the County Department of Public Works, with the background about where we are now with making infrastructure improvements and how we got to this point. Over to you, Danny.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Over the last several years, Stanislaus County has been working to address infrastructure needs within unincorporated developed neighborhoods such as yours. The Board of Supervisors have taken several actions to guide infrastructure improvements, such as prioritizing public health and safety. This looks like the installation of sewer main lines and potable water systems. Next slide. In 2001, the Board of Supervisors approved various strategic priorities for the use of $90 million of the $107 million in American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, also known as ARPA funding. Of the $90 million, $50 million was assigned to community infrastructure. Next. In 2020, a public outreach strategy was approved to gather feedback from the community as to how the $50 million should be invested throughout the county. In this outreach effort, the public was educated on criteria utilized in the Inner West reports. For example, cost of improvements, public benefit, benefits to disadvantaged communities, regional equity, and community support for maintenance. In September of 2022, the board accepted the final recommendations on infrastructure projects to be funded. The $50 million was invested equitably throughout the 5 districts where staff worked with each supervisor to identify the specific projects. For this meeting, we are looking at District 3, Riverdale Park Tract, and District 4, Ceres Herndon, and the Modesto, Colorado Rouse areas. Additionally, earlier this year, of the remaining $17 million that had yet to be assigned, an additional $5.8 million has been assigned to community infrastructure. This will bring the total to $55.8 million that has been assigned to community infrastructure. Staff has not allocated the additional amount to a specific district or project, but will at a later date. And I will pass it on now to our engineers.
All right, thank you, Danny. Thanks, John. So as we begin, kind of lay down the groundwork here for our infrastructure improvements and our progress at this point on the preliminary design. Next slide, please. It's important to understand first what's driving the design, the spirit behind the design, which is the county and the city's vision to invest in the community, to invest in community health and safety. And the vision is implemented through safer roadway access for bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles, healthier water and sewer services, and safer roadway with flooding relief. Next slide, please. So as we focus on the infrastructure improvements that we're incorporating into our design, it addresses the neighborhood needs for a sidewalk, curb, and gutter in unimproved areas. It'll involve a paved road from curb to curb. It'll accommodate parking and ADA requirements, multiple curbs, continuous plain sidewalks for a nice aesthetic continuous look, ADA curb ramps that'll be upgraded to the current standards, and some will be new in areas where they don't exist, many of them actually. Street lighting will be provided where applicable. And then drainage systems will be provided to reduce the flooding that many of you have experienced over the years. We'll have improved water and sewer systems where expanded systems are needed and will be beneficial. And there'll be some other minor assets that will be incorporated as needed, such as water meters, fire hydrants, and the possibility of resetting mailboxes, things like that. Next slide. And specifically within Colorado Rouse, so everything I just mentioned in the previous slide is going to apply to all three of the neighborhoods that we're here to talk about tonight. But specifically with regard to Colorado, there are some varying width roadways in some of the neighborhood streets. So we're going, at the end of our design, we intend to create a uniform standard width roadway that'll have consistent curb, gutter, and sidewalk alignment. It'll have the ADA compliant sidewalks as well as the curb ramps we talked about a moment ago. And this consistent roadway will allow for easier application of drainage improvements and handling the flooding that occurs out there, the stormwater relief. In Riverdale, one primary focus will be including a lift station. There's the possibility that two may be needed. We're looking into that now. We don't know at this point, but we're looking into it. It's a lower lying area, so all the sewer that will be collected will need to be pumped out of there and will be done so with a lift station. Next slide. Now we look at the neighborhood areas. The map on the right gives you an overview of the footprint of the work involved. This is Colorado Rouse, what we call Area 9. It is the entire unincorporated area with some possible areas of incorporated areas of Modesto kind of laced around the boundary of this L-shaped parcel or L-shaped land. The boundary itself is shown with the purple lines beginning at the high side of the screen on the north. That's South Avenue. That will be extended over to Sunset Avenue on the east, and then down Sunset Avenue to Rouse Avenue to the south, back toward the west on Rouse Avenue over to Colorado Avenue, and then it'll proceed down south further on Colorado Avenue to Garden Avenue to the south. Once we get to the south, it'll extend on Garden Avenue to Sunset Avenue on the west. And then from Sunset Avenue on the west, all the way back up to the north end at South Avenue to close that boundary. All of the roadways within this boundary will be improved with the exception of just a few minor areas, Atkinson Way, Roselawn Court, and Leon Avenue north of Figaro. There's a couple of southerly tips that will also be included. You'll see at the bottom of the screen there on the aerial, two little tips that stick down. Those will be included. The purple shaded areas are possible staging areas. These are not commitments for this land to be utilized at all. It just helps us when we're coordinating with environmental clearance for the project that we plan to have and some staging areas for construction. The contractor will typically dictate where those areas will be based on their needs and methods and what they can coordinate. But these just gives you an idea of where there might be some possible staging areas for those that might be interested in knowing that detail. Next slide. Then similarly here with Riverdale, what we call Area 44, this is the entire unincorporated area. The boundary again shown similarly as described on the previous slide, with West Hatch Road on the south, being the southerly boundary, and then Park Drive, basically the loop of that, encompassing the north and wrapping down around both sides. And then all the roads in between in this case. There's an extension of West Hatch Road extending over to South Carpenter Road that will be involved. And then again, the gray shaded areas are just possible construction areas that we anticipate the contractor might be focusing on when that time comes. Next slide. And then with Ceres Herndon, Area 40, this is not the entire unincorporated area, but the entire unimproved unincorporated area, which is what you see with the blue or the purple lines. And highlighting that on the north end is Woodworth Avenue from Music Avenue to Richland Avenue. And then north on Richland Avenue, just a little bit into that shaded area that you see. And then on this, in the middle of the screen, in the middle of that area is Home Avenue from the west side near Herndon Road to the east side to Richland Avenue. And then Nadine Avenue on the south, again from Herndon Avenue over to Richland Avenue. And then Herndon itself, just a short bit of that from Nadine Avenue on that southwest area. It'll go north a little bit to connect to existing improvements. And then on Music in the middle of the screen vertically, that will go from Nadine Avenue up to Woodworth Avenue. And again, the shaded areas are the possible staging areas, again, with no commitment being made to those areas. Next slide. Now, each of these neighborhoods have varying widths roadways, Colorado Rouse being the more varying of the cross sections, but we have 60-foot, 50-foot, and 40-foot cross sections. As we show here in this slide, this is the 60-foot right-of-way section. So this is going to involve two 11-foot lanes, 8-foot parking lanes on each side of the road, a 5-foot sidewalk, and that leaves us with a 5-foot gap from the back of the sidewalk, shown there in gray, to the right-of-way line. That gives us that much room to conform our work within the right-of-way. The overall goal, by and large, with this project is to perform all of the improvements within existing right-of-way. There will be some areas where we'll have to make some exception to that, but by and large, that is the overall intent. And the full width roadbed that may come into play on some of these roadways where we're doing a lot of utility and drainage work. And when that will occur, then you would see the black and the brown shaded areas extended all the way across the road. Otherwise, there will be some areas where we're not doing utility work and drainage work. And so those, well, I should say utility work. The drainage work itself will still be along the flow of the gutters. And that will require that we cover that area with roadbed so that we have full width roadbed from edge of curb to edge of curb. Next slide. The 50-foot cross section, similar to the 60-foot, except obviously it's 10 feet shorter in width. We have 10-foot lanes in this case, still 8-foot parking lanes, a 4-foot sidewalk that would then involve 2 feet of buffer from the back of walk to the right of way, where we can get in a 5-foot sidewalk and have everything conform without having to get into people's yards. It will be a 5-foot sidewalk with 1-foot buffer on that right side, as you can see highlighted in yellow. And that would be mirrored on both sides. When we get into a little more condensed section on the next slide, the 40-foot section would involve two 10-foot lanes, narrower parking lanes of 7 feet, with a 2-foot buffer then from the back of curb to the right of way. There are options that we are considering for these narrower roads, and there's not a whole lot of them. There's a few though, and it's the possibility of sidewalks on both sides without parking on the street, or sidewalk on one side and parking on the other. So those are different cross sections that we are considering for this narrower section of roadway where it seldom occurs. We move on to the next slide. And then this is our schedule. And this is what I'm going to end my presentation on, is that this is a preliminary schedule. And what we're highlighting right now is where we are tonight with our community meeting number 1. It's in September of 2023. Come November, we will meet again and we'll present a little further on the progress of our design and addressing public comments that we get, with the intent to clear environmental, to have environmental clearance completed in March of 2024. There's a good chance that'll happen a little bit earlier than that, but this is a worst case schedule that we're showing. And I see it looks like my 60% design flag fell off of that dot somehow. But that yellow circle on the bottom of that line on the left should have that 60% design for March of 2024. That'll be when we'll get to our 60% level, with 90% then following up in June of 2024. Final design then ending around August of 24, obviously next year. It'll go out to advertisement after that, with a bid opening likely to occur in October of 2024. And then we'll begin construction sometime, somewhere. We'll advertise or after we'll get the contractor's contract in place, and then we'll begin construction sometime around March of 2025, planning for completion of construction in December of 2026. That's when the money needs to be completely used. And so that would be the drop dead date for making sure construction is completed. And then there's a short period of time after that required to close out the project for the federal requirements with the funding sources. Keep in mind that each of these neighborhoods, as you saw, are varying in size. Each one has their own different complexity. So they are going to vary. The schedules will vary. Some of these sites are going to go out. Some of these neighborhoods will go into construction sooner than others. And as we get further into design and get a better handle on that, we'll have a separate schedule for each of those that we can report back on. But this is the worst case scenario for the schedule of all the work that I have highlighted here tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rochelle.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks for the presentation. Great information. And the AECOM team will also be at the next round of, will be in-person workshops. So listen, for people have, additional questions post this meeting, we can talk about them there, and you'll receive information about that. Next, we will hear from Sonia Ortega with NBS Government Finance to learn about the research being conducted about the best way to finance the maintenance of these community improvement projects.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rochelle said is Sonia Ortega, and I am a senior consultant with NBS. Sarah Mayers is also a director who is working on this project, and you will meet her a little bit later in these community meetings. So as we've discussed, the ARPA funds will build the improvements, but additional funds will be needed to maintain these said improvements. So our role is to, currently we're working with the county to develop cost estimates to better determine what those actual maintenance costs will be. Once we determine that, we look at all available funding options and calculate a rate that's specific to your parcel or property type. All property owners will have the opportunity to cast a ballot on the charge for maintenance cost, and we'll have ongoing communications as well as future community meetings where we can walk you through this process in more detail. Once a ballot is sent, if the majority is in favor of additional funding, it would most likely be an annual charge that you see on your annual property tax bill that comes directly from the county. Some of you may pay your property tax bill in monthly installments with your mortgage payments. And if so, that's where you would see the additional cost. Again, part of our ongoing communication is to be very clear that although these areas are not currently being annexed, they're being brought up to city standards with some of these improvements. And in the event that the county and city begin an annexation process, this would again be presented to you prior to any changes. And at this time, that's all that we have to share. Again, our portion right now is very high level, but we look forward to coming before you to continue to share the information as we develop those rates.
Great, thank you so much, Sonia. Okay, before we take your questions, I just want to mention this meeting is being recorded and it will be shared on the Civic Mike website. If you haven't visited that site, it's civicmike.com/Stanislaus. So CIVICMIC.com/Stanislaus. And that's where you can find all the information shared with the community. You can sign up for updates, learn about next steps as we move forward. And so the recording of this meeting, along with the slides being presented, will be posted on the site over the next couple of days. So feel free to visit and share with your neighbors. And if you have been listening to the Spanish audio, we will be moving now back to consecutive translation for this last portion of the meeting. So everyone will hear the Q&A in both languages. If you're online and you have a question, please raise your hand by clicking on the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click raise hand, and I'll call on you by whatever name is on your screen. Please limit yourself to one question so we can get to as many people as possible. And if you have another question, we'll get back to you. When we get to those who've called in, we'll ask you to unmute yourself and say your name if you have a question. And then finally, just ask that you express your personal views, not those of others. And the first hand that I see up is Luis Moreno.
La mano que le veo levantada es la de Luis Moreno.
Sorry, go ahead.
Good afternoon. How you doing? As you hear, my name is Luis Moreno. I'm part of the Herndon community side. Sorry, this question that I'm going to ask is probably not going to fall into subject that just went through, but I want to know if Herndon itself, the street, has any plans of development, because it's, if you come around the neighborhood, if you go Modesto side or City side, the sidewalks have been improved with ramps, and the street has been resurfaced, but all along Herndon has been none improvement has been done to Herndon. So that was, I would like to know if there's any improvements to that street.
Quisiera preguntar, yo soy parte de la comunidad de Herndon y quisiera saber si va a haber mejorías en esta área. He visto las mejorías en la parte de Modesto en cuanto a las rampas y a las banquetas, pero quería preguntar si hay planes de mejoría para esta parte donde yo vivo.
So Howard, can you or anyone on your team address that question? You're on mute, Howard.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll ask Clara if she would like to answer it, and I can certainly do that. But Clara, would you like to answer? Give you guys another voice to hear instead of mine. Well, Clara, can you unmute? Or?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. If
Okay,
you can
there
go
you go.
back to the slide for series in Herndon.
Yeah. So slide number 7, John. In the AECOM presentation.
That way it helps to visually see the improvement of the area.
Apologize, one moment.
Yep.
And Claire and Howard, just a reminder, now we're doing consecutive translation. So if you have a long answer, just make sure you
Yeah,
stop.
I'll pause for Paulina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So give us a minute or so, just a couple seconds to get to that slide. So Luis, to answer your question, if it is shown in the slide that we're working on, then this project is working on the pocket area of Herndon. So your question is specifically on Herndon, right?
Yeah, specifically on Herndon Street, because
Yeah,
there's
so
no.
so if you notice, Herndon is not on the areas of improvement, and it's on the cusp, right? So the pocket is actually to the right of Herndon, And then these are the streets that will have the improvements. Now, if future projects are down the road for the pipeline for Herndon itself, then we will gladly help with the county and the city to work on those improvements. But currently, these are the limits of the improvements.
Yeah, and Clara, there's just that one little section on Herndon. It's not the entire stretch, obviously, but there is that one little piece.
Correct. Exactly. So I don't know, Danny, Chris, if you guys want to talk or touch, add a little bit more to maybe any future projects that may have improvements on that.
Ella mencionaba que esta área que él comenta no se encuentra en el mapa. Ahorita se están enfocando en las afueras de esa área y esa calle en específico no se encuentra en el proyecto. Y ahorita van a decir si se encuentra considerada esta área para futuros proyectos.
I'll just add that, yeah, you guys are correct. So this project will do the east side of Herndon between Nadine and Home. So one's the east side between those two streets is all that's going to get covered in this. I'm not aware of any other projects that are to take place on Herndon. As going north of there, I believe Herndon does have, in certain stretches, has some curb and gutter, but it's also within the city of Ceres city limits. So I'm not certain that the county has any future projects to do any additional pedestrian facilities or anything down that stretch. Danny, do you have anything to offer? I don't know if the city of Ceres has anything planned.
Let's give Pauline a chance to answer.
Es correcto. Este proyecto se enfoca en el este de Herndon, entre Nadine y en la calle Herndon. Actualmente no sé si existan futuros proyectos para el norte de esta área. Sé que hay proyectos para las banquetas y bordes, pero esos están hechos por los límites de las ciudades de Ceres y no sé si tenga mi equipo más información al respecto.
Luis, for clarification, are you talking about the road condition?
Yes, I am. It's all along if you drive through the neighborhood, all the streets have been resurfaced and ramps have been made on the sidewalks all over except Herndon Street from 99 to all the way to River Road. Nothing has been touched.
So there is sidewalk on the east side on Herndon. It's on the west side, which is part of the city side. Right, Luis?
Jose, I'll elaborate. The county has done some pavement preservation in those neighborhoods outside of the city. So that's probably what you've seen.
Él comenta que sí ha visto que se han implementado rampas y banquetas desde el número 99 en Herndon hasta la calle River Road. Sí se han hecho trabajos de preservación para el cuidado de transeúntes y de banquetas y es probablemente los que él ha visto.
And the reason why Herndon has not been done by the county is because Herndon is a city street. It belongs to the city of Ceres.
Y probablemente no se han hecho cambios en esta calle porque esta calle pertenece a las calles de la ciudad del condado.
Great. Thank you, Luis, for your question. I hope that was helpful. And other questions?
Gracias, Luis, por tu pregunta. Espero te hayamos ayudado. ¿Hay alguna otra pregunta?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Bien, no veo otra mano levantada.
Hand raised, Cheryl Graves. Go ahead, Cheryl. Welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, sure.
I live in Colorado, Rouse, and I came in late, so I don't know if you covered this already. But what's going on with the sewer thing that the project that they're putting in sewers? What's going on with that? Is this money going to pay for that, or just sidewalks and gutters, because they said that we wouldn't be putting in sidewalks and gutters until the sewer things put in.
So Cheryl, you'll see in the chat a link that my colleague just placed in about that issue. And to get more information about it, we did talk about that at the top of this meeting.
Okay.
And by the way, you can watch that the whole presentation. The meeting has been recorded. I'll
Okay.
give Pauline a moment to answer before I go on.
Okay.
Ella pregunta sobre el sistema de alcantarillado. Quisiera saber si este dinero va a cubrir también el alcantarillado o nada más las mejorías en las banquetas y bordes, porque yo tenía entendido que esto se iba a realizar hasta que estuviera el sistema de alcantarillado. Rochelle recuerda que se habló de esto al principio de la presentación y le comenta que hay un enlace que fue compartido en el chat de la presentación en donde puede ver más información al respecto, y le recuerda que esta presentación ha sido grabada para que la pueda volver a ver.
It is a separate issue, not part of the ARPA funding, and the information that you may have seen, and we're happy that you have seen it, is inviting you to complete a survey to show interest in that. It's not a commitment on your part. It would be to show interest in connecting from a septic to sewer. And that is what the county needs. They need 200 of those completed surveys. Right now, they're almost halfway there to be able to apply for the funding to actually make that possible for residents. And that would not cost residents additional funding. So it's a whole separate issue.
Then the gutters and
Hold
stuff.
on one second, Cheryl, sorry. And man, I just want to give Pauline a chance to translate.
Y como comentamos, esto no es parte de del financiamiento ARPA. Se están juntando encuestas para ver si hay interés por parte de los vecinos en que se cambie de fosa séptica a alcantarillado. Se necesitan 200 encuestas, van a la mitad, y esto es nada más para lograr mostrar que hay interés y se puedan otorgar los fondos. Esto no va a tener un costo adicional a los residentes.
8:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, and I encourage you to visit the website for more information, and you can also ask additional questions there.
The next meeting.
Y les recomiendo visitar nuestra página web donde van a encontrar información adicional al respecto.
I don't know.
Okay,
So
hand up from Mendy Solano.
when we did the survey, they said that they had 81. They still said they have 81. So how often do they update that thing? I wonder if they're getting them.
That's updated as of today.
Cuando llené la encuesta, apenas iban en 81. Quisiera saber cada cuánto la actualizan, y se actualiza al momento.
Sorry, Rochelle, that just to clarify, that wasn't actually Mendy speaking. That was somebody else that just happened to be unmuted.
know.
So
I noticed that. Mendy, your hand is up. Thank you for waiting
ahead.
patiently.
Okay, your name is Frank.
Yeah, my name is Frank Padron. I live at 1412 Rouse. And I asked you guys a question back when we had it at James Marshall. Do you plan to run Rouse into city? Is that your long-term view? And if so, I have livestock on there that I've had for 50 years. How's that going to affect us?
Mi pregunta es si van a incluir a Rouse en este plan, y mi pregunta es que yo tengo ganado por más de 15 años, ¿cómo es que esto nos va a afectar?
Danny, would you like to, or Chris, take that question?
So, as Miguel Alvarez from the city of Modesto had mentioned in that same meeting, James Marshall meeting, the city has spoken with their code enforcement. If and when annexation happens, they would consider the fact that, or you will be grandfathered in and not necessarily be fined for having livestock, because it is against city ordinance and stuff like that. But he had spoken with his code enforcement and he mentioned that it would be something that they would have to work through. But again, that's if and when annexation happens.
Y como lo había mencionado Miguel Álvarez en esa junta, se habló con los encargados de la ciudad y en caso de que llegue a pasar la anexación, está considerado que se tiene ganado y no había problema ni los afectaría, pero esto es nada más si se llega a llevar a cabo la anexación.
Okay, I see Cheryl's hand up again. Is that from your previous question, Cheryl, or did you have another question?
I had a question regarding what he just asked.
Go ahead.
So if annexation happens, then we'll no longer be able to have our animals and stuff like that.
Y
Because
mi pregunta está relacionada con la que se acaba de hacer. En caso de que se lleve la anexación, ¿ya no podremos tener nuestros animales?
I see Chris's hand up to address this question, I think.
I just wanted to clarify that no, you would continue to be able to have those animals as you do today, even if you were to be annexed into the city of Modesto.
Y nada más quería mencionar que van a poder continuar teniendo los animales si es que llegan a ser anexados a Modesto.
I also want to clarify your previous question, Cheryl, about the sewer versus these improvements. You are correct. There are two projects that will be taking place. One will be sewer. And theoretically, it's two projects, but it's going to look like one. We're going to put them together and we'll probably build it all at one time. It'll include some sewer improvements and some curb gutters and sidewalks improvements and storm drainage improvements.
Y también quería clarificar su pregunta anterior en cuanto al sistema de alcantarillado y las mejorías. Sí, de hecho hay dos proyectos que son diferentes. Son dos proyectos, pero se van a llevar a cabo en uno solo. Uno es el del sistema de alcantarillado y hay otro que se incluye banquetas, rampas, bordes y drenado de tormentas.
Thank you. Frank, did you have another question or your hand up from before?
Yes.
Yeah, I got an 81-year-old mother that I'm moving into my property. We're in the process of getting a modular put on the property. Being that you're not giving permits to septic tank, because that one gets hooked up to the city as well, or do I have to pay for that?
Sí, tengo una pregunta. Se va a mudar a mi casa una persona de 91 años y quería preguntar cuál va a ser el costo cuando se haga la instalación del alcantarillado.
Chris or Danny, would you like to take this?
That's not what I said.
Yeah, I think we would have to speak with the city of Modesto to see how they handle that, whether they only allow one sewer lateral per single family home, or if they would just maybe size the lateral to take a secondary structure per parcel. So we have to work those kind of details out. I'm not sure where you've gotten quite there yet.
So on the
Sí.
go for it, Paulina, sorry.
Creo que tendríamos que hablar con la ciudad de Modesto para ver si van a permitir nada más un alcantarillado lateral por casa o si van a permitir uno segundo, dependiendo la parcela. Tenemos que esperar a esos detalles.
On the survey, it will ask how many septic systems are on your property. So that's how the city is determining costs for on-site, for the demo and also for the hookup.
En la encuesta se le pregunta sobre el tipo de alcantarillado de su propiedad y de ahí se van a determinar costos e instalación.
Might also be treated, I don't know, Chris and Danny, but it might also be treated just like an ADU. So they might have flexibility because you're adding additional dwelling. So I know that sometimes depending on the city, that they'll treat it like an ADU and give you flexibility to add that extra laterals.
Y no lo sé, también puede ser tratado en ciertas áreas como una ADU. Puede haber flexibilidad porque va a haber una adición. Entonces, a veces depende de la ciudad y de la flexibilidad de la ADU.
So Frank, if you have, if we have your email address, we can follow up with you once we have a little more. It sounds like there's some information still to be gathered on that question. So if are you able to subscribe to our website and put a note in there about this issue that you're interested, or if not, you can just give us your email address now if you're comfortable.
I'm fine with it.
You
I
can
don't- I
also
don't use-
just put it in chat, so I make
There you
sure
go.
you can just send it directly to me.
Perfect. Thank you, John. So yeah, just click on that chat button, Frank, at the bottom and go ahead and type it in. That would be really helpful.
You're talking to a guy with very limited talents. I have my daughter do it for me, but you should have it because there's already 2 houses on the property. And when we talked to you guys back in James Marsh, you said you could hook those 2 up. But she's turned 91 and she can't live by herself. That's my concern. I'm just trying to set a budget. You know, that's my concern.
Yep, we hear you.
Va a compartir le van a aclarar esta duda a través de correo electrónico y es un tema que ya se venía tratando sobre la anexación a su propiedad.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up. Any other questions from anybody on the phone?
¿Hay alguna otra pregunta para los que están por teléfono? No veo más manos levantadas.
Let's see. Lynette, are you waving at us to try to ask a question? Saw a hand wave, but not an icon.
Lynette, vi una mano que se movió. No sé si le está levantando para hacer una pregunta.
Maybe not. Okay. I see Cheryl with her hand up again. Go ahead, Cheryl. Cheryl, did you have a question?
Cheryl tiene una pregunta.
Okay. We can come back to Cheryl later. There's a question from somebody who's on the phone. All it says on our end is Samsung.
It's me, I'm sorry, Josie. I couldn't change the name. So I've been listening and I'm thinking that our street is going to be included, but I just want to make sure. It's right across from John Thurman Field on Sunset. Down to what's that other street in the corner? Rouse. To Rouse. So that section is is part of the project. Is that correct?
Y nada más tenía la duda si mi calle va a estar incluida en el proyecto. Mi calle es de Sunset a Rouse y quería preguntar si está incluida esta sección en el proyecto.
So this is in the Colorado Rouse neighborhood?
¿Es en el vecindario de Colorado Rouse?
Yeah, sí.
Yes.
Okay. And which road do you live on, or which road are you requesting?
¿En qué calle vive?
It's Sunset, pretty much on the corner of Sunset and Rouse. Across from Thurman Field.
Right, yeah, and you'll see on the screen there, Sunset is covered from Sunset Avenue to South Avenue. Excuse me.
Rouse.
Hang on a second.
South to Rouse.
Yeah, Sunset to Rouse.
So let me keep in mind that on Sunset, depending on if you live on the west side of Sunset or the east side of Sunset, these improvements are to encompass the pocket. And within the Stanislaus pocket, I believe this one is
It's on the west side.
On the west side. So do you live on the east or west side of Sunset?
It's the west side?
The west side, because the other side is park. Park.
Yeah, it's the west side.
The park.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that one doesn't have sidewalk, and that one will we will be putting in curb gutter sidewalk and then the additional improvements as needed.
Okay, when we got the invitation to join the meeting here, we signed up and did the survey, and there's actually 2 properties. And I noticed that the number didn't change from 81, it stayed at 81. At what point do those surveys get counted, do you know?
Oh, we'll probably update it again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that other people have already filled that out so that you can get the 200 and get this done, because it's something we've been looking forward to having it done, putting the sewer in there.
Go ahead, Pauline.
Ella espera que su calle sí va a estar incluida y espera que se llenen más encuestas y que lleguen al número de encuestas que se necesitan, porque es un proyecto que han estado esperando para que se instale el alcantarillado ahí.
Thank you. I see, Frank, do you have another question? I see.
Yeah, if we're grandfathered in, supposedly that we with our livestock, does that mean that we can only have those animals, or can we buy and sell, bring different animals in?
Pregunta que en caso de ser anexados, si van a continuar con nada más con esos animales o si pueden seguir comprando y vendiendo animales.
Chris or Danny?
Yeah, I don't believe that those conversations have totally been had with the city of Modesto yet. So unfortunately, Frank, I don't totally have an answer for you, because I don't think anybody's gone that far into how this is all going to work if this gets annexed into the city of Modesto.
Desafortunadamente todavía no se han llevado a cabo esas conversaciones con la ciudad de Modesto, entonces todavía no hay una respuesta porque no han tan avanzados con esas preguntas.
But we'll definitely look into that for you, Frank, so that when we meet you out at the neighborhood meeting, you can have that conversation with us, and hopefully we'll have a better answer for you.
Pero definitivamente vamos a investigar y en la próxima junta de vecinos proveerle una respuesta.
Any other questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Well, I want to thank everybody again for taking time out of your evening to learn more about the projects being designed, and also
Bueno, pues quiero agradecerles a todos por tomarse tiempo de su tarde para aprender más sobre estos proyectos que están siendo diseñados.
if you have any other questions that you think about, after tonight, you can see the, in addition to signing up for updates on our website, if you haven't yet done that, please do so. We have, for additional questions, a way to reach us via email, via phone, and by mail. And that information is on the screen. And if you're on the phone, email is simply contact@civicmike.com. And by phone, it's 800-676-7516. And we'll do our very best to answer your questions or get answers to them if we don't know the answer.
Y bueno, si se les ocurren más preguntas en esta noche, por favor suscríbanse a nuestra página donde nos pueden contactar para hacernos sus preguntas, ya sea a través de correo electrónico, teléfono, correo. Ahí en la pantalla pueden ver toda nuestra información de contacto. Otra manera de contactarnos es a través de nuestro correo contact@civicmike.com o nuestro teléfono que es 800-676-7516 y haremos lo mejor posible para responder sus preguntas y darles respuestas.
Rochelle, I'm just going to jump in. If you want to try with Lynette one more time, she does seem to be waving her hand into the camera. You want to try one more time? I'm not really sure if she's going to be able to unmute or not.
Okay, thanks, John, for noticing that. Lynette, you need to unmute yourself if you have a question. There's a little microphone on the bottom of your screen.
Lynette tiene que abrir su micrófono, tiene que hacer clic en el icono del micrófono que está al borde en su pantalla.
I think she's looking for it.
Yeah, maybe she's looking for it. I think she's driving. I hope you're being careful, Lynette.
Can't we unmute her line?
Oh, not driving.
I can only request that she unmute.
We're still not hearing you, Lynette.
It makes sense to request, and that way it pops up on her screen as request.
Yeah, I'm sure John has done that.
Oh,
Oh,
Do you hear me now? I see you.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
yes, we hear you now. Go ahead, Lynette.
Good, you got it. Oh, okay. I live on Holm Avenue for 38 years. And originally back in the early 90s, we were lighted, our whole area that on the east side of the freeway. Do I get any perks in Holm Avenue and Richland? And I don't know. Are you talking about my street?
Yo he vivido por 38 años en la avenida Horn y Richland y quería, desde los años 90 hemos estado así, quería preguntar si íbamos a recibir algún beneficio sobre esto.
Hey, John, that's slide 7, by the way. And Lynette, Holm Avenue is going to be improved. Basically, between Herndon and Richland. Yes.
Okay.
Does that
Okay,
answer your question?
Yeah, because we were
Okay.
considered a blighted area. Is that going to be removed? You know what I'm saying?
Well, the improvements are to provide curb gutter and sidewalks and improved sewer and storm drain and water where sewer and water are
Okay.
needed. So that's what
And
it's going to
it'll-
focus on. It's going to focus on the surface streets and some street lights where beneficial.
Okay, that's going to be my street too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Y en efecto, su calle va a ser beneficiada con servicio de alcantarillado, banquetas, alumbrado. Y sí, su calle sí está considerada ahí dentro de esta sección donde va a haber las mejorías.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there and persevering so we can get your question, Lynette. And thanks everybody else for your attendance tonight and our presenters. And we look forward to seeing you in person at the community workshop. Date to be determined, but you will receive a postcard in the mail as you did for this meeting. So thanks very much, everyone, and good night.
Muchas gracias a todos por presentarse, gracias a nuestros oradores y exponentes y esperamos verlos en persona en nuestra junta. La invitación, todavía no hay fecha, pero vamos a mandarles una invitación por correo, así como la recibieron para esta noche. Muchas gracias a todos y buenas noches.